What's up, guys? Polybagel here. Wanted to make a quick video about Quaternion versus Euler rotations for Viewmodel animation and like the pros and cons. I'm gonna keep it pretty short and sweet, so let's start with Quaternions and the pros that Quaternions have for animation. One big difference with Quaternions is that there's a fourth dimension, which basically means that there's no gimbal lock, which I'll explore further in this video. And what that allows is that Quaternions rotate in a straight line because there's no like discrete axis angles. Like there's no 90 degrees on the x-axis, stuff like that. It's just a straight line. It's like a vector or something, some math bullshit. But Quaternion is really good for avoiding gimbal lock, because that's one of Euler's biggest downfalls, is that if you rotate things incorrectly, you lose an entire axis of precision. And actually, I'm going to show you guys what that kind of looks like. So if we go onto our Euler rotation here, take the z-axis, rotate 90 degrees, y-axis 90 degrees, x-axis 90 degrees. Right here, if I rotate the z, it rotates the gun like that. If I rotate the y, it rotates it like that. But if I rotate the x, it also rotates on the same direction as the z. We lost an axis of precision. So this is one issue that Euler does have that you may run into with Viewmodel animation, although you gotta do some pretty extreme rotations to do that. But that is definitely something to consider. Now another thing that I want to sort of compare is the difference when actually going in the graph editor and animating this. So I'm going to do a practical example here. Let's make a keyframe here and here. Now let's say we take the z axis on here, and let's say we rotate it to the left a little bit, right? Now, if I go onto the X like that, when the gun is rotated like this, the X rotates the gun on the roll axis, so this looks correct. But if the gun is rotated and I do the same thing, it doesn't look right. It's rotating on the global axis. So that is actually one issue that Quaternions have. Again, it rotates in a straight line, so that's kind of how Quaternions are designed to work. But again, a consequence of that is that doing these discrete rotations usually doesn't align with the actual local axis. And you can see in here, if I rotate along the local axis, it's changing 3 axes at the same time, the W, X, and the Y, because it has to do that to rotate like that. Because again, one axis is not enough to actually rotate this correctly. But with Euler, let's do the same experiment. Let's take the Z and rotate it. And now if I take the X, do the same thing, you may be like, Mr. Polybagel, why'd you lie to us? It looks like it has the same problem. But that's where the actual Euler mode comes in. You'll notice there are a ton of different Euler modes. This is the order that it applies the rotations. Now, the first letter is the parent axis. This is the most important axis. Right now, it's set to Z, Y, X Euler. Let's change it to X, Y, Z Euler. Notice something changed. Now, if I do that, it rotates properly on that axis in both poses. And again, you could do this for any axis, but I think the x-axis, or the roll axis, is probably the most important for Viewmodel specifically. That is something that Euler has over Quaternion, because again, you can't really do that. It just isn't possible. Now, one more thing I should mention with, let's say, the y-axis, if we want to rotate the gun up and down, with Euler, you unfortunately can't do the same thing. With the y-axis, it's going to be again rotating on the global axis, because you can only pick one parent axis, and the other two just rely on the parent axis, like the first letter. So even if we do, XYZ or XZY, it's going to have the same thing. So again, you have to pick an axis and stick to it, whichever one is going to be most important for your animation. So again, that is something to consider, but for things like fingers and everything, this honestly doesn't really matter, because usually with fingers you're only rotating on like one axis, like to bend the fingers. And again, for something like hands, Quaternion is honestly probably better because it has better interpolation. Again, like I said, Quaternions rotate in a straight line. But for weapons, in my personal opinion, I think Euler is generally more useful and easier to work with. Again, it's a lot more human readable. Right, again, if you look at the top here, the rotations are in actual degrees on the X, Y, and Z axis. But on the Quaternion, it's just a vector. Like you can't, it's harder to read. And you have this mysterious bullshit here, the W axis. But yeah, me personally, I like Euler. I just think it's nicer to work with. Not to say the Quaternion is bad, it certainly has its use case, and again, it has superior interpolation than Euler, but I would honestly recommend trying it out if you haven't already, because it does have some genuine benefits over Quaternion in Viewmodel animation specifically. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. I thought this was something that people don't really know a lot about, like for specifically Viewmodel animation. That is all for today.